Welcome to Ask Dr. Change. I'm Dr. Linda Ackerman Anderson. I'm happy to have you join me today to explore how to seriously uplevel your leadership and consulting to transformational changes, all through conscious change leadership. Welcome. Today's episode is a special opportunity for me. I'm here with my dear friend and colleague, Joe Rafter. Joe is the group client partner for Capgemini and also the founder and CEO of the National Football Alliance. We're going to hear about the Football Alliance a little bit later on. Joe, so happy and thankful to have you here with me today. Tell us a little bit more about yourself before we dive in.
Well, likewise, Linda, when you invited me to be on here, it's a gift to spend this time with you, especially having worked so closely together for so many years ago. I'm born and raised in Philadelphia, in the suburbs. I'm really content-wise, I'm a strategy execution guy. So I've done a lot of work with C-suites in many different industries, both large and small, helping them to reshape their business model using technology. Some people call that transformation. I try and steer clear from that term because that word means so many different things to so many different people. I've worked all over the world, 5 continents, what I've learned in those travels are the technology can do anything we want it to do. We can always get the budget if we have the business case. But really, at the end of the day, why projects, programs, companies, teams fail is because of unhealthy human dynamics in their environment, which is frankly what led me to you guys in the first place a long time ago.
Yeah. Say more about that. What was jumping out at you that got you into the change leadership world?
So I was in my early 30s. I was working for IBM, and I'd worked all over the world and gotten involved. And I really made a career at IBM in turning around troubled situations. So I was kind of parachuted in, smoke jumping in to try and fix situations. And I was sent to Australia to be a chief engineer on the largest transformation program in the world at the time. And that was a very, very difficult experience. Personally, professionally, I learned so much. When I came back from that experience, I thought to myself if that is how big, large transformations go, and IBM can't make it work successfully because it wasn't necessarily a successful project, then the brass ring, the definition of what good looks like, what great looks like, was still out there. And so I left IBM and I went out on my own, and I ended up, I took a job with a little company called Yellow Book.
A little company.
Little company called Yellow Book, which was an independent Yellow Pages firm, and they were losing a ton of market share to search engines. And so they hired me as an AVP of change management. And so I joined and I started exploring, like any good consultant would, what is this topic of change management? Let me really kind of pour myself into it. And I came across your book, as well as others. But your book really spoke to me from a concept theory in Beyond Change Management. But then the roadmap for me, I'm a program manager at heart. And so I looked at the roadmap, I saw a work breakdown structure, and I went, okay, I can see a view of how to execute change management. So I found it very, very helpful, very insightful. And that's when I started becoming, I'll say, a lay practitioner of your work. And then, of course, when I went to PG&E is when we really had a chance to roll up our sleeves together.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your experience at PG&E, what you were attempting to do there to establish change leadership across the company.
Right on, sure. So I was brought in to launch a new enterprise change management function. They called it change management. I called it change leadership. because I truly believe that change needs to be led. There's an aspect of managing change, making sure that things land, but the concept of leading it was really why I was brought in. I had no project responsibilities. I wasn't a project manager. I wasn't a process analyst. I wasn't a solution architect, which are three jobs I've done in my past. My full-time job was to help leaders show up differently and help them drive enthusiastic adoption of digital technologies across electric, gas, transmission, distribution, across that particular firm. We were basically digitizing the grid. And so it was all coaching, all guidance, all advisory around how to help leaders truly lead change and develop change strategies so they could implement and achieve the things that they wanted to in their specific areas of the business.
Yeah, fabulous. It was a very intensive time of work, both the projects coming at you. There were more projects than your folks could handle, which was a statement of the value they were delivering. And Joe, I think we ended up training about 750 people, both the consultants, the project managers, the project teams, project leaders in conscious change leadership, which was a statement of how many managers really wanted your group's help, as a statement there. Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Yeah, go.
I was just we caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
There was an organization that was starving for change IQ development, change IQ capability. How do I how can I be better at this, at implementing the change? I can write the code. I can test it, whether it was SAP or whether it was a third-party piece of software that was out in the field, whether it was an iPad application. That technology, we could do that. But where the company needed help was, how do I get a diverse set of stakeholders to actually use the technology in an environment that was, in some cases, had high trust, in other cases didn't have the trust that it needed to actually land the adoption. And so we got involved in a lot of, all the thorny sides of the people aspects of change.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, and from your experience through today, how would you define successful change leadership? What's it look like? How do you know you've achieved it?
Oh, Linda. So, what
big
a
question.
What a question. I think change leadership is inspiring others to believe and become more than they are today. I believe change leadership is inspiring others to, number one, believe. I, in my mind, believe we are capable of something better, and then to go and activate that in the market, whether that's deploying a new iPad application to 5,000 linemen in a utility, or whether that's, frankly, defeating a bill to ban youth tackle football in the state of California. Either one of those, which was my experience that led me to the National Football Alliance. Either one of those, it's you have to inspire others to become a bigger version of themselves.
Awesome. I remember conversations we would have about your ability to up-level other people's thinking so they could see more deeply, see longer, which is an enactment of what you're talking about, to help people see there's something bigger, more, better that we can go after once we see it.
Yeah. And so it's more than just, it's more than just training people on the new SAP model.
Right.
I've had conversations over my entire career in the change space where I say to leaders, so let me get this straight. What percentage of people were trained? 100%. Okay. And what's the feedback on the training? It was excellent. They loved it. Okay. And what's the adoption rate? 60%.
Right.
So where's the gap?
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of proactive and reactive strategies that that people in this practice are, apply, but that's the telling factor is really, it's all about the adoption and the uptake, because if you don't get the adoption of the technology, you don't get the business value.
For sure. The difference between installation and full realization of what the outcome needs to be,
Yeah.
which you've been after all this time.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what advice do you have for leaders today who are on the path to beginning to see more, realize they need more? What advice do you have for leaders today?
So for a leader who is undergoing some significant ambition or who is taking on, is maybe at the mercy of a significant disruption.
Yeah.
First, you have to master yourself. You have to get focused on your own leadership style and how you land on others. And I think it's a hard thing for people to get their head around, but it's my lived and learned experience that the harder I work on my leadership style, on my ability to influence others, to want to be more and then go activate it, the better I become an instrument for that change, the more other people start running through walls for me and with me, as opposed to me pushing people to run through walls themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think this element of inspiration is really important. And like a really good question to ask leaders, so if there's a change practitioner in the audience here, right, which I'm sure there are, like when's the last time the leader did something inspiring to their people? And I'm not talking about like, quarterly awards. When's the last time somebody actually got in front of the team and declared a call to action that maybe is bigger than what might be apparent in front? I'll give you an example. When we ran those training classes at PG&E, when we opened up, one of the things I used to ask is, what do we do for a living here at PG&E? And people would raise their hand and they say, we produce electricity. Yep. And we distribute gas. Yep. And we fix transformers or power lines. We keep the energy, keep electricity on. I said yes to all those things. I said, but I want to encourage you to look at it a little differently. We help babies get born in hospitals. We keep people alive because the machines that they're on in a hospital are powered by the electricity that we create. We keep social order as a utility company, because if you lose electricity, it's like, it can become really, really bad. So finding that higher calling as a leader and helping people see that higher calling within the context of the work that they're doing in any industry. I'm currently spending a lot of time in the oil and gas business, right? Mm-hmm. So sustainability is a big part of our call to action now. I'm still deploying SAP. I'm still managing databases. I'm still helping my client implement technology. But for what? The reason really is to help create a more sustainable planet.
Absolutely. Awesome. And how about advice for consultants? How we go about influencing our clients, our organizations, our leaders?
So I learned this the hard way. I think the most important, and I learned it really in the change space. You have to speak your truth, especially truth to power.
Yeah. And
I had some conversations in my time, my entire career, including several at PG&E, where I had to speak truth to power, and it was a difficult conversation. Yeah. But I look back on those conversations that I take a lot of pride, right, in what I said, how I said it, how I held myself. And there's some conversations I've had in my life where I've spoken truth to power, and I did a really bad job of it. Really. Mm-hmm. And so there's 3 ways I like to describe how people need to speak truth to power.
Yes.
The first one is unarguably. speak with language and data and facts that are not able to be argued with, and in a manner that you're not fighting. You're not in an argument. You're just speaking your truth calmly, unarguably. Second, speak unambiguously. Use very clear language that leaves the audience in a place where there's no guessing. What did he really mean by that?
Yeah.
Stay away from that kind of communication and check with the listener. Does that make sense? It's one of the things I say all the time. So I think it should be red, not blue. Does that make sense? Right? And then lastly, speak unapologetically. There's no reason to apologize for having your opinion. Right? I've learned, and I'm deeply committed to the reality that you're 100% accurate with your perspective. It's yours. You own it.
It's yours. Mm-hmm.
It's yours. So if you think the right answer is red, not blue, you should speak it. And don't apologize for it. As opposed, if you feel yourself going to apologize, the hack that I offer folks is don't apologize. Thank them for the opportunity to share your point of view.
Yeah,
so if you go, hey, I think it's red, not blue, and I'm sorry that you think it's blue, don't say that. Say, I think it's red, not blue, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my opinion. It's a great hack to avoid that giving up of your power.
Awesome. What other changes is really helpful advice for consultants? And I'm curious, as you've grown in your career, what other changes have taken place for you about your own approach? I mean, you just gave 3 great examples there. What else? How have you seen yourself evolve through this work?
So, if I go back to my mid-career, maybe it was early, my early 30s, mid 30s. I was reactive. So I'm a lifelong football player. I played in grade school, high school, and college. Okay. I was a defensive end. My job was to sack the quarterback. So conflict, no problem. You want to get into conflict? No problem. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's go. And I learned that approach did not serve me very well as I got further into my professional career.
Yeah.
And so I made some mistakes. I was more than willing to take on conflict. Maybe a little too eager. I'm really comfortable with it. And so what I've learned over time, I'll say that through my mistakes and through my own journey around personal mastery of my own leadership style, is to move from reaction to response. And the way I do that is I find the pause. If I feel myself in a reaction where somebody says something and in my head I'm going, well, that's bogus, or if I'm coming across judgmental in my head, I'll pause a sec. I'll try and wonder, why would they have that point of view? They're 100% accurate with their point of view. That's cool. And what could be my response as opposed to an emotional reaction?
Yeah.
That's one of the techniques I use. The other one, I'll just take a drink of water, or maybe shift in my chair a little bit to get out of my head for a second. That's another technique that I found is useful.
How about the one breath?
One breath, absolutely. That's the pause, right? That's the pause.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Pause.
Awesome.
You can pause with breath, pause with a drink, pause with a sitting back, right? But maybe getting less reactive and more responsive, where I can intelligently respond, cognitively, emotionally respond, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I would say is, and because I say this to my teams, I want us to lead in a way where our head, heart, and hands are all connected.
Nice.
And I find, I'm sure your audience will have experienced people who are very, very cognitively oriented. No heart, no hands. So they're the people who are always the smartest people in the room. They say everything, but they don't actually ever do anything and don't understand how their comment lands on others. And so I always like to have the head, the heart. What do I know? How does it feel? And what can I do about it? In alignment.
Awesome.
I find that to be helpful.
Absolutely. Beautiful. That's one reason why you're such a great coach. Yeah, good. So, what's next for you, Joe? You're deeply enmeshed in the fabulous work that you're currently doing. What do you think is next for you?
So, football is my next horizon.
Hmm.
I am so I when I was in California, um, I founded the California Football Alliance, and I and two others co-authored the first youth tackle football safety law in the country. After defeating a bill to ban the sport, ESPN wrote about it. It's the only youth safety law, football safety law in the country. I moved out of California. I'm back in Philadelphia now, and so that organization is left to my California colleagues. But I've launched the National Football Alliance, which is a superstructure to bring together the very best of football across the country to try and aggregate and optimize as much as we can where we can. We're a nonprofit. We are a volunteer organization right now, but ultimately, I'm entering. You can see by my gray hairs, I'm entering my third chapter in life at some point here in the future, somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years, and so I'm preparing for that. In the meantime, I coach high school football now, and I do this because this I've seen this sport change people's lives of men like me, grown men who are fathers, and 5 and 6 and 7 year olds in all four corners of our country. And so this sport's not for everyone, but for those that it's for, it's deeply meaningful and life changing. And so,
Yeah.
I'm the self-proclaimed greatest advocate for American football in the country. And so the National Football Alliance is a new platform that I and several other colleagues are building, nationalfootballalliance.com. You can go learn about what we're doing with fundraising and helping to honor, improve, and advance the sport.
So, honor, improve, and advance the sport. This is an incredible transformation. I mean, it really, to call it what you're attempting to do, it's a transformation. And so I'm curious about your strategy for taking on this as a transformation.
Great question. So, first and foremost, I need to be credible. And so I think my background in the sport, 27, 28 years as a player coach, is one piece. I've built a phenomenal team. I have a chief football officer, spent 25 years in Power 5 football coaching, works with the NFL teams. Is a remarkable guy, John Reagan. I have others. I have a chief medical officer who's a neuropsychologist out of University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, the best neurology organization in the country. Dr. Alicia Turbovich. And I've assembled others. I have Zach Ertz's mom, Lisa Ertz, is our chief engagement officer. So I brought people together from many diverse backgrounds who care about the sport authentically and what it offers are those that play it. We're also coming out with a podcast. So we will have a podcast starting in November. It'll be John and one of the guys from California, Steve, and I. And it's going to be an interesting podcast. It'll be like a mashup of a bunch of different. It'll be kind of like a TED Talk, but it'll be much more fun and jovial and down to earth. A little more blue collar than that, I think. We're also coming to market in 2025 with our first product. I'm not ready to reveal what that product is yet, but we are going to have a product to offer out of the market. You'll be able to buy from the National Football Alliance. It's going to strike right at the center of honor, improving, and advancing. We really want to transform the sport, particularly at the youth and high school level, in a medically informed way.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. So I hear strategy. I hear staffing with capability. I hear diverse orientation, so you're looking at it from all perspectives, seeing broadly, seeing deeply, seeing long distance. I hear about, engaging others so that they too become believers. You talked about that earlier. And coming out with a service and a product at some point for people to get their hands on what this is about. And a podcast for communications to engage others in it. So I'm feeding back to you what I've heard in terms of transformational strategy, given how huge a transformation this particular effort is. And also, as a great lifelong football fan, I deeply appreciate it, even though my teams are a little iffy this year.
Yeah, mine too.
So that is absolutely awesome, Joe. So you using your career's learnings to actually accomplish something that will make a huge difference in this particular sector of society. Really beautiful.
We've all sat around the video call and talked about this as a leadership team. People who join this team, and you can see it on our website. We have an advisory board. So I have 4 people who I like and trust. One's a former coach of mine, Chris Leupold. One coached in my high school and is a former CEO of TD Ameritrade, Joe Moglia. He coached at the college level as well. Just a remarkable man. Merrill Hodge, former Pittsburgh Steeler, who's had his own journey in the sport. And then Joe Galat, who's the founder of the American Youth Football organization, the largest youth football organization in the world. We're doing this for purpose.
Yeah.
Right? This is part of us creating a legacy, leaving something behind that's bigger and better than ourselves.
Absolutely.
So that future generations can benefit from the sport.
So one of the things I glean from that is, as you say, it's about purpose. So any transformation has to be fueled by purpose, not just the numbers, not just, the percentages, but purpose. It's the heart element that you were talking about, and then having a vehicle for the hands to actually play in it. Because clearly the cognitive, your head, you've created an awesome strategy and an awesome team. And so driven by purpose, it's very moving, and everybody ought to take from what you've said, what is the purpose of the work that they're actually currently engaged in, and how to spread that, how to make a critical mass of purpose around the work that they're doing.
Yeah, I like starting with the why, right?
Yeah.
When I ran youth organizations, I used to have a football coaches clinic in my own organization every year. And the first question I asked all the coaches is, why are you here?
Yeah.
There's 30 guys and some girls in a room volunteering to spend, 10 to 15 hours a week on a football field when they already have other jobs and other elements of their life and families. Why are you here? And
right.
that tended to lock people in. And when things got hectic later in the season, maybe you weren't winning as much, or maybe you had a bad play, I would try and remind people why they're on the sidelines coaching, right? Keep that why in mind, because it's easy to lose sight of that when schedules are late, when results don't happen the way that we want them to. But bringing people back to the why, particularly as a leader, I think is necessary at times.
Yeah. Joe, my impression of you always, through all the decades of knowing you, has always been you're an emotional guy. But I don't mean emotional like, emotional. I mean, you help people tap into what's important to them and why things are needed in our world to make things better. You've always tapped that particular channel in what you've done, no matter how technical or how organizational it is. There's always that element in how you proceed. It gives permission for others to feel the importance of what they're doing.
Well, Linda, that's high praise. Thank you very much. I'm humbled by your comments, and
always true. Yeah. I want to ask you to share a little bit about something you shared with me about your unscripted gathering at Capgemini as a culture changing strategy. I think that would be really informative for our audience.
Yeah, cool. I love unscripted. So when I was hired into Capgemini, I was based in San Francisco, and I was asked to be a part of the West Coast engagement board. And so we were sitting in a meeting once and said, so how are we going to engage our 300 people out on the West Coast or whatever it was? I said, I want to host a 1 hour show each month, and it's going to have no PowerPoint presentations. It's going to be unscripted. We're just going to have guests in and we're going to talk. And people are like, what? How's that going to work? I said, just go with me on this. 3 years later, we've run the show. I don't know. We normally take off in December. So we have something like, 30 different episodes. We started off with some color. Our first episode in August was a color commentary on high-tech industry that turned into the gentleman who I was interviewing is originally he's a Frenchman, and we ended up talking about his top 10 favorite bottles of wine, and he published a list of his favorite wines. We've played table topic games. I pull out a bunch of cards and I ask questions and people engage. I've had my African-American friends on in February to talk about and celebrate Black History Month and explore what does it mean to be an African-American in our country these days. I've done the same in March for International Women's Day. I've had panels of our own women as well as clients talking about what it's like to be female and a leader in technology. Last month, I hosted a conversation on healthy masculinity, and what is my guys like me? What is our job? What is our responsibility and accountability in the area of DE&I? So it's a blast, and you would not believe like the list of topics, because we ask our audience for topics. They sent me the list last week. It's how do I engage emotionally? How do I deal with conflict? These are all skills that we're talking about in this change leadership space, right? Mastery of self and relating and creating connection with others. I've had people on the call. They say, I've been in business 30 years, and this is my first call in Capgemini on Unscripted. I've never seen an experience like this in my life. It's an authentic dialogue where we explore topics, and there's an audience, and we raise hands, and there's lots of conversation and no PowerPoint slides, which I think is
awesome. How do you feel after 3 years that it has altered the culture? Because it began as a culture strategy.
So you're familiar, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with, the shirtless dancing guy. These are my first followers, right? And so we are building a community of people who are in wonder around exploring each other's points of views on topics. Mm-hmm. So there is no one smartest person on the call anymore, right? Sometimes we have a panel speaker, we'll talk about things, but we really don't do a lot of that. We're creating connection. And what's happening is people from different practices, different accounts, different backgrounds, different countries who don't have a chance to work with each other, have a chance to experience each other in this call.
Beautiful.
Right? So that's really what we're doing is we're cutting horizontally across the company in many different vectors. What I do for a living, my management structure, the country I'm in, the client I work for. And so people are getting a nice cross section of our organization and being able to see a broader Capgemini.
Yeah. And you mentioned a really important word there, again, reflective of who you are, and that is creating connection in ways that are different than what can you do for me and what's your skill and what's my skill or my knowledge base or your knowledge base. You're creating connection at an entirely different level of human beings who are all working really hard on behalf of their jobs, but feeling each other in various topics of great importance to them.
And
just
seeing and hearing another person give their perspective and having that perspective appreciated, recognized, right? So there's a lot of vulnerability in the conversation. And, the connection piece, I mean, I think our job as leaders is just to create connection. And every single one of us are human. So if we can find ways through conversations, games, exploring topics, having, including humor along the way, if we can do those things to create connection, then you create a great experience for people, and people want to be a part of those great experiences more.
Beautiful, really beautiful. Well, Joe, this has been absolutely fantastic. You're such a unique human being. I mean, how you've delved into so many different arenas in your life. And as a father of 3 boys and wonderful wife, the whole idea of, appropriate masculinity is just, wow, that's powerhouse. Really, really great. So last thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience, remaining at bits of advice or guidance, wisdom.
So, I mean, I've drained a couple things in the call. Speaking truth to power, creating connection. I'll say this. So you just asserted that I'm a unique individual. That's 100% true of all of us. Right? And there was a point in my life where I always felt unique, and I still to this day, I definitely feel unique. Sometimes I feel different being a negative perspective of that.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes I feel separated because of my uniqueness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably not the only person who feels that way. Mm-hmm. So I think at the end of the day, it really does come down to, really striving to be the best version of yourself. Mm-hmm. There's nobody else like you in the whole world, ever in the history of mankind. And so you might as well be the best version of yourself that you can and embrace your uniqueness and show the world what you're capable of, and do what I like to refer to as, I want to see you shine. I really want to see other people shine for the unique value and beauty that they possess.
Coach's words. Really awesome. Joe, thank you so much for spending this time with me and for being in my life all these decades. You are a gift. You absolutely are a gift. I really appreciate this time with you.
Well, Linda, I can't thank you and Dean enough. Your work that you've put out in the universe, I latched onto it the moment I read it, and it's made a big difference in my life. You helped me tap into a lot of the things I'm sharing here today. I'll still take ownership and pride for it, but I will also be deeply grateful to you and Dean for the work we've done together, and I miss working with you both. And so it's great to be here.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Today's subject is one of the key topics that we feature in our Leading Transformational Change online program. If you'd like to learn more about leading transformational change, go to beingfirst.com/LTC. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you gained some valuable insights for your work. Please send me your questions and challenges by going to askdrchange.com.